The finding of a new home. Okay, for the basics, I am 35, my wife is 33, we've been married 11 years as of last April and have 4 kids. In 2009, my wife had an emotional affair with an ex. It was only text messages back and forth between them, and when he asked her to come out of town to where he was, she said no and that the talking had to stop because what she was doing wasn't right. She confessed to me the day after she ended contact, handed me her phone so I could read it all. After a fight, she suggested counseling. I agreed. Everything went smoothly. We were back to being a happily married couple. We decided no secret passwords on phone or computers, so there would be a level of trust knowing if the other had doubts they could check for themselves. Everything was great till 2012 when our first set of twins were born. Postpartum depression hit her hard. She almost killed herself and spent the better half of the year spiraling out of control, bouncing in and out of mental hospitals. She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder at this time. She got on medicine and everything went okay for the next 2 years, at which point she again spent most of 2014 in a mental hospital. In 2015, she began to act very odd around me, distant and uncaring towards me. I talked to her about it and she said she wasn't meaning to be that way and would work on it, even invited me to join her at her group counseling to discuss it further and to resolve it. Well, later that same night I checked her emails and phone just to see if there was more to the odd behavior, and found she was speaking to several different men, non-local or even in the same state as us, but in the stories that she was selling to these men I was an abusive husband who forced myself onto her and wouldn't let her leave. I confronted her and told I had had enough, and she not only could leave but I invited her to do so. She tried to tell me that this was just role play and fantasy to her, that it was no different than me watching porn. I told her it was very different, that when I watched porn I watched with her or with her on my mind and wasn't involving another person or slandering her in the process. We separated, then I felt bad for her and began to miss her. I let her come home and she showed remorse and openness that hadn't been there most of this year. Things went on well for the next 2 years. She did have a few breakdowns that required short stays in a hospital. In 2017 we had a second eat of twins, which surprised us as she had had an ovary removed due to cyst and was told her other one was essential not working. This year we hit some financial stress. I was laid off, quickly found another job, but it pays less than what we are used to, so she took a job at night waiting tables at an all-night cafe. Well, again I noticed she was distant here the last week or so with her past. I checked her email and phone, found nothing, decided it must be from her adjusting to working for the first time in a long time. Until a couple of days ago when I decided to surprise her and take her car and get the oil changed and the car detailed. At the shop, one of the guys detailing the car brings me a cell phone they found under the passenger seat. It's not my wife's or my phone, so I start going through to find whose it is, only to discover it is my wife's second phone, and she is texting a guy she met while waiting tables. There is no hard evidence of anything more than texting, and I haven't confronted her yet, but I do have the phone and she know I had her car cleaned today and even thanked me for it as she left for work tonight. But hasn't asked me if I found a phone in her car. I want to change the locks and tell her to go to hell and that I should have never forgiven the first time. But I am afraid with the fact she has lied about me before and her mental issues, I know that isn't the correct way to handle this. I know what I need to do, just not sure how to go about it. Does anyone here have advice for me? And I don't need to hear how stupid I was for taking her back the second time. I've hears it from all my sister and my best friend 1,000 times. My sister moved in with us after her divorce that was shortly before our first set of twins and has been my live-in babysitter when needed, but there are times my wife has proven to be an excellent caretaker. Not sure how she'd function without the safety net of my sister and I being there for her though. It was a sad evening, and I decided it was time to confront my wife about the second phone. My sister had taken the kids out to see a movie, providing us with some privacy to discuss the matter. The tension in the air was palpable as I mustered up the courage to bring up the subject. "Look, I need to talk to you about something," I began, my voice trembling slightly. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I knew I had to do this. "What is it?" she asked, her eyes meeting mine with a hint of suspicion. Taking a deep breath, I held up the phone I had discovered in her car. "I found this. Care to explain?" Her face turned white as she realized the gravity of the situation. She tried to play it off, stammering, I don't know what you're talking about. That's not mine." But I knew better. I had seen the messages, the texting, the undeniable evidence of her betrayal. "Don't insult my intelligence," I snapped. "I've seen the messages. You've been texting with some guy you met at work." She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. A heavy silence filled the room before she finally whispered, "I'm sorry." "Sorry? You're sorry?" I exploded, the anger I had been bottling up finally boiling over. "This isn't the first time, and I can't take it anymore. You've lied, cheated, and manipulated me for years." Tears filled her eyes, but my rage was too strong to feel any sympathy. I never meant to hurt you. I don't know why I do these things." "Well, it's not my problem anymore," I growled, my voice shaking. "I want a divorce. You need to leave." She begged me to reconsider, to give her another chance, but I refused. I had given her too many chances already, and I couldn't bear the thought of going through this pain again. That night, my sister and I helped her pack her things, the atmosphere tense and full of unspoken pain. When she finally left, the weight of our broken marriage felt almost suffocating. But I knew I had made the right decision. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Trying to navigate the complex and emotionally draining process of divorce while also caring for our 4 children was overwhelming. I hired a lawyer to help me through the legal aspects of the divorce, and they advised me to gather any evidence I could find of her infidelity and erratic behavior. I documented the messages on her secret phone and her previous history of emotional affairs, hoping that it would be enough to help me in court. During this time, I also sought therapy to help me process my feelings of betrayal and anger. My therapist helped me understand that my wife's actions were not my fault, and that I had done everything I could to try to save our marriage. One of the most challenging aspects of the divorce was the battle for custody of our children. My sister and I were determined to provide them with a stable and loving home, and I feared for their well-being if they were left in the care of my wife, given her mental health issues. My lawyer recommended that I gather statements from friends, family members, and even medical professionals to build a case for full custody. We presented evidence of my wife's history of hospitalizations and her inability to consistently provide a safe environment for our children. I also highlighted the stable and supportive home my sister and I could provide, emphasizing our strong bond with the kids. Throughout the custody battle, my wife fought back, claiming that her mental health issues were under control and that she was capable of providing a loving home for our children. But deep down, I knew that without the support of my sister and me, she would struggle to care for them properly. The divorce process dragged on for months, each day seeming longer and more exhausting than the last. The tension between my wife and me grew more and more strained, and the emotional toll on our children was evident. Finally, the day came for the judge to make a decision. The courtroom was filled with tension as we waited to hear our fate. I held my breath, praying that the judge would see the truth and grant me full custody of our children, partly because of her medical condition. After what felt like an eternity, the judge ruled in my favor. I was awarded full custody of our children, while my wife was granted supervised visitation. The relief I felt in that moment was indescribable. Though the divorce was finally finalized, I knew that our lives would never be the same. My children would have to adjust to a new reality, and I would have to continue to support them through this challenging time. In the months that followed, my sister and I worked tirelessly to create a stable and nurturing home for our children. We established routines, provided emotional support, and did everything in our power to help them adjust to their new lives. My wife and I continued to maintain a civil relationship for the sake of our children. Her supervised visitations went smoothly, and I could see her making an effort to get her life back on track. As time went on, I began to rebuild my life, slowly healing from the pain and betrayal that had defined my marriage. I leaned on my sister, friends, and therapist for support, and gradually, I started to feel whole again. The journey through divorce and the fight for custody was a long and painful one, but in the end, I knew I had made the right decision for my children and myself. We had emerged stronger, and I was determined to make the most of our new beginning. By comment, she sounds like a poster child for bipolar disorder. She checks off all the boxes. You can't fix crazy, my friend. She will be like this the rest of her life, and the illness will get worse as she ages. Your kids should be your #1 priority. What you and she are putting them through is damaging them. Story 2. I have been with my husband for 8 years, married for just over 2. Last July I found out that he'd kissed someone else. I asked him if it had gone past that and he said it hadn't. It was just a kiss. He is a building surveyor and he'd met her while doing a project at her place of work earlier in the year. He told me he'd gotten to know her and she'd shown an interest in him and they started talking. He told her about all the problems in our marriage that he felt we had, although these were not brought to my attention prior to him telling her the issues. When I found out in July, we briefly discussed some of the issues he was unhappy with and I felt like we were dealing with them. In August I asked him how he thought things were going and he said he felt things were going well between us, so I had no cause to believe otherwise. We went away at the end of August on our anniversary and had a good time, or so I thought. In the first week of September, he was acting strangely and I could tell something was getting to him. Eventually he admitted he had lied to me and that he'd slept with her several times. He said he didn't love her and that she'd made him feel good and actually wanted to spend time with him, whereas I apparently didn't. I find out that she is only 19, we are both 34, and I don't understand what the hell he is playing at. It knocked me for 6, especially when he turned nasty and said it was because of the state of me that he'd cheated on me. I admit I have put on a bit of weight since we first got together, but that does not justify, at least in my mind, a reason to go outside the marriage. I got upset at this stage and we didn't talk for a few days. He confided in his parents that he'd betrayed me and they told me he was remorseful and cried, but would not apologize to me, and still has not actually said the words "I'm sorry." We were still living together and he barely spoke to me or discussed any of the issues and what we were going to do to resolve the situation. He said he didn't know what he wanted to do and was very unsure of himself. I wanted to work things out, but he just said he didn't know. He said he would not contact her again, but I found out that he just couldn't not talk to her, text her. He said he liked talking to her and that she listened to him. I just wanted him to talk to me instead of her, but he wouldn't or couldn't. He has never been much of a talker, but I was glad when he said we would go to Relate to see if that helped. I found out that he'd spoken to her a week before our anniversary to break off their contact, but then got back into contact afterwards behind my back. I saw some of their conversations, and she was pushing for him to leave me after she'd known him a few months. A few days before my birthday in October, I found out he had gone to meet her for coffee to properly break up, and he'd bought her expensive pair of boots as he felt guilty for how he'd treated her. I couldn't believe my ears when he said that she was a victim. It made me so angry. She knew he was married because she asked him outright, and he admitted he wasn't, so I do not believe she was a victim as she continued to get involved with him. In the middle of October, I moved out as he wanted some space, and his parents own the place we were staying in, and we have barely been in contact. I tried to talk to him on several occasions and encouraged him to discuss our issues so we can both understand what went wrong and if we could find a way through it, but he wouldn't reply or just change the subject. I gave him the space he wanted, and he said we should take our time apart to focus on ourselves and to sort out our heads. We went to one counseling session before Christmas, and he always told me he would never shut the door on me and that we would continue going to Relate to see where we ended up. In the new year we had another session booked, but he messaged me last minute to say that he couldn't attend as he was off work sick. I later found out from his mom that he didn't feel comfortable with the counselor, and that's why he didn't want to go. Why didn't he just tell me that? A few days later I saw that he had added her on Facebook and then deleted me and my family. I don't know what their relationship is right now, but it seems very coincidental if nothing is going on between them. It just hurts so much that he refuses to talk to me about anything relating to our marriage or issues and goes behind my back and starts seeing her again as if he's single. At this point we'd had no conversation about our relationship, and I had made it very clear to him that I wanted to stay in the marriage. He was the one who wouldn't say either way what he wanted and kept reiterating that we should be sorting our own heads out. A few weeks later I get an email from him in response to one I had sent to him asking him to talk to me and discuss what was going on. He said he wanted a divorce and that despite how it looked he hadn't chosen her over me. It broke my heart. I don't get how someone can leave an 8-year relationship just like that and jump to someone who he barely knows and is so much younger than him. He was willing to go to Relate up until the new year, and as soon as he's back in contact with her, he doesn't want to go anymore. How can he decide to end our marriage on a few weeks thinking, or at best a couple of months? He can't be thinking straight. His family don't understand it either. He won't talk to any of them about what's going on in his head, and he apparently avoids them. His parents have made it clear that he is not dealing with things properly, but he is ignorant to what they say and continues as if what he is doing is acceptable. What kind of a future does he think he has with her? He's willing to throw away our relationship and marriage on someone he has known for a few months. I just don't get it. And it hurts an awful lot. Some of my friends tell me that he's not worth it and that he's made his choice, but I can't accept it. I have no closure on the situation, and I can't believe the couple of issues he brought up are the reason he wants a divorce. I don't compromise enough when it comes to the films we watch or let him listen to his music in the car. They're so petty, it doesn't seem believable. We didn't have the perfect marriage. We bickered at times, and I'm sure I have plenty of annoying habits, but so did he. We aren't perfect, but I acknowledged it and was willing to try and save our marriage. I really thought our vows were worth the try at salvaging our marriage, but he just wants to hide and run away without discussing things like an adult. He said he loved me but couldn't be with me. What the hell does that mean? He won't explain anything, and the few times I did manage to push him, he comes up with trivial things as if he's grabbing at straws for excuses. I am trying to move on and forget about him, but the grief returns, and I can't believe my loving, affectionate husband has turned into a cold, distant stranger who has tossed me aside for her as if I meant nothing to him. He didn't want to keep any of our wedding things and is acting as if I don't exist. I know no one knows what is going on in his head, but is it possible he is in what some people call the fog, or a midlife crisis of some sort? I just can't get my head around the fact that he can just move on so easily and jump from our marriage to her in such a short amount of time and without even seeing if we can work out our issues. He seems to want to rush into divorce, and I can't help but feel he is making a mistake not taking the time to think things through with a clear head and without her muddying the water. Some people have said I should initiate divorce proceedings, but this is something I really don't want to do, at least not yet, and some people have said I should give things a bit more time as it hasn't been that long really, and he may realize what a fool he is being. I guess I am asking others what they did, are doing, and if their partners woke up to their behavior before they get to the point of no return. I do love him and know that he is treating me badly, but fool as I am, I just can't give up yet. Half a year later, I have been in denial about the breakdown of my marriage for a long time. I thought with a bit of time he would realize what he was about to lose, but like others have said, he didn't care. He proved this many times over, but I was stuck in the what-if stage like a fool. We will be divorced within the next month or so, and it will be good to put all this behind me. It took a long time to not want to be with him any longer, and although a very small part of me would still like him back, I now believe that I deserve better. I don't want to be with someone who can act so callously and treat our vows like they're nothing. Why would I want someone who deliberately hurt me and continue to say and do things to make me question everything about myself? It's taken a lot of counseling and self-healing to get myself to this point, and I've just finished a couple of books about cheaters and chumps which made me laugh. It's like they follow a script. I could relate to a lot that my ex-husband said to me. It's ridiculous. I'm now at a place where I won't burst into tears at the mention of his name or if people ask how he is, but not sure if I would want to be in another relationship just yet. I guess the part that scares me is the trust thing. What if I can't trust another guy again and I drive both of us crazy looking for signs that may or may not be there? How do you get past that after being cheated on and humiliated by the person who claimed to love you most? And I guess the other thing that I can't seem to get past is the anger that they seem to have gotten away with causing so much heartache. I'm the one who has lost friends over this, and they seem to have waltzed off into the sunset without losing anything and are secure in the fact that no one, apart from his family, know how they got together. To her family and friends, they just met and fell in love, and because I was a nice person and didn't shout it from the rooftops, no one knows what they did, and he can play the innocent single guy. How is that fair? His character was hidden for a very long time. I understand that now. I just didn't want to believe that he could do something like that. But I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as his father is a serial cheater and his mother took him back several times. The only difference is his father wanted to stay with his mother. My ex-husband didn't want to stay with me. Our divorce will be final soon, and, thankfully, we don't have kids, so we won't have any ties together. I am mostly relieved as I don't have all the mess hanging over me and don't have to deal with his nasty, cruel behavior anymore, but I guess I am a little scared of the unknown future and starting over from scratch again. It's taken a long time for me to accept that my marriage was over. At first, I didn't want the divorce. I wanted to try and work things out. But eventually I saw that I was better off without him and the way he has treated me in our marriage, and started to look forward to having everything over and done with. The day the absolute arrived, and the following day I was in really good spirits, and it felt like a huge weight had lifted from my shoulders. But today in particular, my emotions keep changing from being okay to feeling sad and tearful that 8 years has gone down the drain just like that. Deep down I know this divorce is the best thing for me, and I am trying to stay positive in regard to my future, but the grief comes and goes without warning. I feel really silly talking to friends, especially those who said from day one that I should have left my cheating ex-husband, as I know they will not understand why I still feel sad. In some ways I do not understand why I get upset after everything that has happened, and in particular how he has acted. Are these feelings normal considering my divorce has only been final since the beginning of August? Should I expect to feel this way for a while longer? I think I was a little naive to think that these feelings would disappear just because I had a piece of paper dissolving my marriage, but I hoped I wouldn't be so up and down still. The other thing that is playing on my mind is what would have been our anniversary is later this month, and I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that. The more I try to be positive about the end of my divorce, the more I seem to get upset over it. I don't know why I am posting this really. I guess I just wanted to write something down and maybe hear from others who are going through the same thing and perhaps had crazy thoughts like me. Update. I've been divorced for nearly 3 months now, but we had been living separately since Nov 2017. He cheated on me after 2 years of marriage and after a few months messing me around with false hope of reconciliation. He ultimately left me for his much younger affair partner. After the divorce I have been wondering what other people did with their wedding stuff such as rings, dress, wedding album, guestbook, etc. I am in a much happier place now that the divorce has been finalized, but I just can't seem to get rid of a lot of my wedding things. I have since disposed of a lot of the smaller things, but I guess I am still attached to some. After speaking to other people, I've had different answers ranging from get rid of the lot, don't know why you want to keep it after everything that's happened, to you don't want to make any rash decisions in case you regret it. Is it silly of me to keep hold of my wedding album, dress, and various other keepsakes? I don't have children, so it's not like I'm keeping hold of the things to hand them down. The items are stored safely away in my wardrobe, and my engagement and wedding rings are kept in my jewelry box. Although I rarely get them out, I think I would be really sad to see it all go, at least for the time being. I know he treated me like dirt, but it was a big part of my life, and I don't want to pretend it never happened. Despite how it ended, I was happy right up until I found out about the affair. Is it weird for me to want to keep hold of them? Do you think I am hampering my recovery by hanging on to these items? I know I have to make this decision myself. I guess I want to hear what others have done because I keep flitting between deciding to get rid of them and then panicking. I am making a mistake and changing my mind. Is it possible I can keep these things and still move on despite others judging me and saying I'm just fooling myself and I'll never move on properly unless I dispose of them? Since the divorce I have not looked at the album or my dress, however my rings are in a jewelry box, so occasionally I take those out to look at. I no longer cry when I hold them, just feel sad. At the moment I think I'll keep hold of them. Like others have said, it is still quite early after the divorce. I am resigned to the fact that I had no control over what he did and who he chose in the end. Stupidly, I played the pick-me dance and focused too much on trying to change me so that he would choose to stay with me. Nevertheless, he chose her and it took a long time for me to accept it, but I don't feel I think I am still his wife. I have no contact with him and rarely think of him. Sometimes I miss the things we used to do together or places we visited, but then I make a point of reminding myself what he did and how lucky I am not to be living with that nightmare any longer. I do hope I meet someone else who I can spend the rest of my life with and perhaps get married to, but there are days when I think I'm kidding myself. Those are my downer days where I think negatively about a lot of things. Deep down I think I want to keep certain things, not to keep him in my life, but because they mean something to me as an individual. Can't really explain it. I am sure I'll have happy times again. In the meantime, I am working on myself and enjoying all the good things in my life. I feel that I may change my mind in a year or few years from now, and for the moment, they're not taking up that much space anyway. Nor do I keep getting them out. Perhaps it would be different if I continually took them out to look at. My comment: there isn't a right or wrong answer, it's what makes you feel better. While trashing certain things might help a bit, it's unrealistic to expect the disposition of things to fix everything. And of course, if you keep something, it is easy to change your mind later. If you trash it, not so much.